not as rigid as we once thought. Now extend this into our everyday lives. If consciousness plays a role in defining outcomes at the microscopic scale, what happens when we direct our focus deliberately? Attention becomes more than awareness, it becomes a sculptor of potential. What you focus on, you influence. The brain itself mirrors this, neural pathways strengthen with attention. The more you think a thought, the more real it becomes, not just in your mind, but in how you act, speak, and move through the world. Your attention acts like a quantum observer, not collapsing particles, but collapsing possibilities in your personal reality. Where your focus goes, energy flows. When you constantly hold fear in your awareness, you reinforce neural and emotional patterns of contraction, limitation, and stress. But when you direct sustained attention toward a desired outcome, whether healing, growth, or connection, you're not just imagining it. You are reorganizing your own internal structure, your chemistry, your perceptions, your habits, and eventually, your external behavior. This isn't metaphysics in disguise, it's supported by neuroscience. Studies show that intentional focus rewires the brain through neuroplasticity. Repeated thought reshapes cortical maps. Visualization activates motor pathways. Belief changes biology. Your attention alters your internal state, and over time, this affects the choices you make, the emotions you generate, and the interactions you attract. At its core, the quantum model suggests that reality is not fixed, it is probabilistic and sensitive to input. In this model, intention becomes a tuning fork, a signal that aligns you with a specific version of reality from among many possible ones. You are not creating from nothing. You are choosing, from an infinite field of potential, a coherent path and walking it with every act of conscious focus. This continuous process of choosing, moment by moment, shapes the trajectory of your life in subtle but powerful ways. The quantum world teaches us that uncertainty is not just a feature of tiny particles, it is a fundamental property of existence. Each thought, each act of attention, nudges reality in a particular direction, collapsing possibilities into experience. When you focus on gratitude, creativity, or hope, your brain starts filtering the world differently. You notice opportunities you might have missed, your body chemistry shifts toward healing and resilience, and your actions begin to align with new outcomes. This isn't magic, it's the cumulative effect of thousands of micro-decisions, each guided by your chosen focus. In a sense, you're editing the script of your life by where you place your awareness. This idea finds echoes in physics, psychology, and even in the fabric of culture. In quantum mechanics, potential is everywhere, but it takes an act of observation to crystallize it. In human experience, dreams and intentions remain unrealized until they are given energy, attention, effort, time. The world you inhabit is the sum of what you choose to notice, believe, and act upon. Just as the observer's gaze brings particles into being, your mindful focus gives shape and substance to the unfolding of your personal reality. So what happens when you become intentional, not just reactive, with your focus? You begin to move from a passive experiencer of life to an active co-author of it. In the quantum model, the field of possibilities is always present, but it responds to coherence. A scattered mind sends mixed signals. But a focused, emotionally charged intention acts like a laser, amplifying one outcome over the rest, pulling it from the haze of probability into the sharpness of form. This principle is echoed in experiments where people trained in focused attention, such as experienced meditators, seem to influence random systems slightly more than chance. While these effects are subtle, they hint at a deep truth: coherence of mind may generate coherence in the environment. Emotion plays a critical role. Thought is the signal, but feeling is the carrier wave. When intention is fused with elevated emotion, joy, awe, love, it becomes magnetic. The quantum field, in this analogy, doesn't respond to words. It responds to the vibration you emit, the signal of your inner state. That's why wanting something isn't enough. If you desire change but dwell emotionally in lack, you're reinforcing the old pattern. But when your thoughts, emotions, and attention are aligned with a new possibility, as if it's already real, you begin to shift your position in the probability space. You tune yourself to a different timeline. In neuroscience, this alignment between attention, intention, and measurable change is grounded in well-established mechanisms. One of the most robust findings is neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself in response to focused thought and experience. Studies using fMRI and EEG have shown that mental rehearsal activates the same brain regions as physical practice. For instance, athletes who visualize specific movements can improve performance measurably, even without physical execution. This demonstrates how thought alone, when intentional and repeated, can modify the brain's functional architecture. The Hebbian principle, neurons that fire together, wire together, shows how repeated focus reinforces synaptic pathways, making certain patterns of perception, emotion, and behavior more likely. This biological basis explains how sustained attention changes not just what we think, but how we think, and ultimately what we experience as real. On the quantum scale, while the observer effect is well documented, such as in the double-slit experiment, where detection collapses wave functions, this doesn't mean consciousness is required in the metaphysical sense. But it does show that measurement, an act of interaction or information exchange, alters the outcome. In quantum electrodynamics, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle makes it clear that certain properties, like position and momentum, can't be known simultaneously with precision, not because of limits in instruments, but because of how nature operates. Observation is interaction. Interaction changes the system. This parallels how in psychology and behavioral science, cognitive attention functions as a filter. Through the reticular activating system (RAS) in the brainstem, we prioritize what to notice from billions of sensory inputs. Focused intention literally alters perception, both internally, in terms of neurochemistry, and externally, in terms of what we act on and attract. In short, quantum physics shows that potential becomes actuality when measured. Neuroscience shows that focused attention reshapes the brain. Psychology shows that intention and belief alter perception and behavior. Put together, these facts form a scientific foundation for the idea that intention is not wishful thinking, it is a biological, neurological, and quantum-analogous force that shapes outcomes over time. This convergence of quantum theory, neuroscience, and psychology paints a compelling picture. Our internal states, what we focus on, what we believe, and what we emotionally embody, can have tangible effects on our external reality. In the field of psychoneuroimmunology, research has revealed how thoughts and emotions influence the immune system. For example, prolonged stress or fear activates the hypothalamic, pituitary, adrenal, HPA, axis, increasing cortisol levels, which over time can weaken immune response and even alter gene expression through epigenetic mechanisms. Conversely, positive emotional states, induced through practices like mindfulness, gratitude, or coherent heart-brain focus, can reduce inflammation and enhance immune function. The body, in this sense, responds to thought as if it were experience. From a systems theory perspective, the brain and body operate as an open, dynamical system, constantly interacting with the environment. When you focus your attention, you're influencing the flow of information through this system. Studies in electroencephalography, EEG, show that meditation, intention setting, and focused mental states lead to increased coherence between different brain regions, especially in gamma and alpha frequencies, associated with higher awareness, creativity, and integration. Even in quantum biology, researchers have begun to explore how quantum processes, such as quantum tunneling in enzymes or coherent energy transfer in photosynthesis, suggest that living systems may exploit non-classical physics to enhance efficiency. Though speculative, it raises the possibility that life itself might be more deeply embedded in the quantum structure of reality than previously believed. Thus, when we talk about attention shaping reality, we're not invoking mystical forces. We are describing a cascade of physical and informational effects, from subatomic probabilities to neural plasticity to behavior and immune response. The observer in quantum physics collapses a wave function, the human observer, through sustained intention, collapses infinite behavioral futures into lived experience. One is instantaneous, the other accumulates, through repetition, coherence, and emotion, until a new pattern of reality emerges. This accumulation, this slow collapse of possibility into actuality, is what gives power to consistent intention. It's not a single thought that changes reality, but the ongoing alignment of focus, emotion, and behavior that sets a trajectory. Over days, weeks, or months, this coherence becomes measurable, not only in brain scans or blood chemistry but in life outcomes, habits, and relationships. In longitudinal studies on meditation and mindfulness, researchers have documented structural changes in the brain. For example, the prefrontal cortex, associated with decision-making and goal-setting, becomes more active and denser in experienced meditators. The amygdala, which governs fear responses, shows decreased activity. This means the brain becomes more resilient, focused, and emotionally balanced, not through external changes, but through repeated internal focus. In behavioral economics and psychology, the expectancy effect and placebo response further demonstrate how belief and attention influence reality. People given inert substances, placebos, often experience real healing effects simply because they believe in the outcome. This isn't imagination, it's a biological response to an intentional state. Belief alters the brain's chemistry, which in turn affects physiology. The nocebo effect, negative expectations causing harm, proves the same in reverse. Focused attention on illness or fear can worsen symptoms, even when nothing harmful is physically present. We return, then, to the central idea: reality is not fixed and passive, it is interactive and responsive. At the quantum level, measurement creates outcome. At the neural level, attention creates structure. At the behavioral level, intention creates habit. And across all these levels, emotion acts as the amplifier, the signal that gives thought biological weight and real-world direction. In this framework, you are not merely reacting to the world, you are participating in its unfolding. The observer effect isn't limited to physics labs. It is alive in your daily choices, in where you place your awareness, and in how deeply you embody the future you seek. Every moment, whether you're aware of it or not, you're tuning yourself like an instrument, adjusting your internal frequency through thought, feeling, and focus. And this inner frequency acts like a signal, interacting with the external world in ways both subtle and profound. Think of your mind as a lens. Wherever it points, reality begins to crystallize. Not instantly, not magically, but through small shifts that accumulate like drops carving stone. If you continually dwell on limitation, your nervous system adapts to survive, not to thrive. But if you persistently orient toward expansion, toward possibility, your biology responds with openness, flexibility, and growth. This isn't philosophy, it's physics, it's biology, it's behavior. When your thoughts are aligned with elevated emotional states, like inspiration, compassion, or wonder, you move into physiological coherence. Heart rate, breath, and brain waves begin to synchronize. Your body enters a state where healing accelerates, creativity increases, and stress hormones fall. This state is not just a fleeting experience, it's a trainable condition. Practices like focused breathing, visualization, and mindful awareness don't just feel good, they alter the electromagnetic fields of the heart, measurable by instruments like magnetocardiograms. Your heart is not just a pump, it's an information center. And when your intention is clear and emotionally charged, it radiates coherence through your entire system. Meanwhile, your subconscious, the silent architect of your behaviors, takes cues from repetition. It doesn't respond to fleeting desires but to consistent signals. That's why one clear, emotionally rich intention practiced daily can create more change than 1,000 scattered thoughts. Reality isn't something that happens to you. It's something that responds to the signals you send, with your biology, your focus, your emotional frequency. And once you realize that, attention becomes sacred. It's not just noticing, it's choosing. When you begin to understand that attention is not passive but causal, your relationship with